All right, we are live and I love it. So I'm about to be going live literally on a weekly basis to talk about all things foster care and adoption, and specifically why I wrote this book. So yeah, I guess I'll get into first our theme song, because you gotta have a theme song while we're letting people know. And I'll explain the significance of this song. When I was a foster kid, I had weekend visits. And I also had, weekend visits got canceled, and then it turned into supervised visits. And at the end of these visits, I mean, it was just a small little concrete room with little plastic chairs, and we only had a couple of hours, and I got to see my mom and my older brother and my older sister for a couple of hours. And at the end of the visit, we would sing and hug each other. We would sing the song. So that's why I'm sharing this song with whoever joins this live stream. So yeah, I wrote a book about my experiences in foster care and with being adopted. I really poured my whole heart and soul into this book, and I hope that people will check it out, pre-order it. I think the only way we're really going to know what is 100% going on with children in foster care and being adopted is by listening to those with lived experience. So yeah, that's the whole point of the book, is because more of us need to speak up and speak out and tell what happens within the system, because so many people are infected with Hallmark syndrome. Now, you might be thinking like, well, what is Hallmark syndrome? And, I make these little funny skits to bring awareness to a very serious problem. But Hallmark syndrome, very few people have heard of it or know about it. But it seems to me everybody is infected. So many people are infected with Hallmark syndrome. And Hallmark syndrome is the idea that foster care should be a tool to build your family, and that you're going to feel all these warm, fuzzy, happy feelings because you're saving these poor children that have no family, no friends, no family, no one loves them, nobody wants them. And it really does like elicit a saviorist complex from people to want to get involved for the wrong reasons. And then when they find out the reality of it, it's like a smack in the face. So yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, everybody who gets involved with foster care or adoption, whether that be through the state or whether that be through a private agency, they need to be trauma informed. They need to be child-centered and not me-centered. So when people are telling me like, oh, Marika, I'm really thinking about becoming a foster parent, or I'm really thinking about adopting, my response is always like, why? I always ask why. And I ask why because my ears are perked up now and listening to hear, are they child-centered or are they me-centered? Child-centered or me-centered? And, I had to explain this to someone on a different platform earlier today, that I can see the thin line where somebody could get confused. So me-centered is, I'm going into this to meet my own needs. I have, always wanted to be a mom and never got my chance, either because, I went into early menopause or I had fertility issues or whatever, and it didn't work out for me. And, so many people will be like, I really, really wanted to have a baby, but it didn't work out for me, and I guess I'll just adopt. And the word just is like a dagger in my heart, because that is already sending a clear message that this is not their first choice, that this is their second choice, maybe even third choice at parenting. And what I always tell people is, whatever kid that you end up taking care of, they're going to feel that. They're going to feel that they were not their first, they were not your first choice. They're going to know that. And that is heartbreaking. As hard as you may be trying to be like, this is my baby now, and, whatever, they're going to feel that. And the other thing that I always tell people is that, foster care is supposed to be, having a goal of family preservation and reunification. Meaning, me as a foster parent, my goal is to be, let me hold on to these kids and keep them safe and well fed and taken care of. Their emotional needs, their physical needs, like everything, mental health, all that, while their bio family is getting it together so they can be reunified. And a lot of times, now I'm not talking about extreme cases of, where there's extreme abuse, or the bio parents have extreme mental illness that they can't get a handle on, so they can't parent, or they are suffering from the disease of addiction, and their addiction has taken over in such a way that they cannot parent. I'm not talking about those situations. So I'll be the first to acknowledge that sometimes reunification cannot happen. And in those cases, the foster parent's goal or job, if you ask me, is to comfort, is to offer support, because this child is grieving the loss of their original family. And that may show up in all sorts of different ways. That may show up as sadness, depression, shutdown, rage, anger, acting out through fighting, and just all sorts of resistance. And as the foster parent, you need to be trained and be trauma informed and child centered to say, okay, this is not about me. This little person is going through a lot because they lost a lot. They lost a lot, period, because it didn't work out for them to be able to go back. But there are many cases where, just with a little extra help and support, the bio family can get it together to be able to take the baby back, or kid or teenager, whatever age they are. I know in my situation, I believe my bio mother only needed two things to be able to parent me and my two siblings. She needed maybe three. She definitely needed childcare. She also needed some therapy and maybe some parenting classes. Because for some reason, she got in her head that a 5-year-old boy was the man of the house and could handle things while she went to work, school, and hanging out, even just hanging out with friends, just taking a break. That is errored thinking. A 5-year-old should not be responsible for changing the diaper of an infant sibling, making bottles for an infant sibling, or any of that. So we were removed because of that, and she deteriorated. And this is something people don't think about, is the sadness and the disappointment and the feelings of out of control that a bio mother feels when the children are taken away for a reason she doesn't understand. She's like, they were fine. The girls had their big brother and he was the man of the house. So because of that breakdown, then she did lose her housing and she did lose her employment and barely finished college. So then once we were in care, then it was like, okay, you need housing for this many months. You need employment for this many months. and just not able to get it back together. And the thing that bothers me is that she had those things when we were removed. So how is it the thing she had when we were removed now put out there as a thing she needs to get in order to reunify with us? So to me, that's like injustice. Like, seriously, she just need a little support. And there's a lot of families like that just need a little support. Help with housing, help with making sure their mental health is stable, help with substance use and abuse. And a lot of times reunification is possible. So Hallmark syndrome, affects basically everybody involved in the system, because it's like foster parents and adoptive parents are told how wonderful it's going to be and how they're doing a great thing and saving the lives of these children that nobody wants, and they have no family, when really they have a family that does want them, despite being maybe dysfunctional or problematic in a lot of ways. And then there's extended family that might want to step in if they knew about it. In my situation, I was placed, which is called kinship placement, with my grandmother, and that didn't work out because of the requirements put on her. She needed a bigger place because I needed my own room and not to be sharing a room with her. She needed to get a licensed daycare. Daycare after daycare was not approved. So all this time is passing. I never was able to reunite with my grandmother, and I was never able to reunite with my mother either. And I really strongly believe as soon as my foster parents expressed interest in wanting to adopt, that all efforts on the biological family's side was sabotaged. Because it's like my adoptive family looked better on paper because, husband, wife, he's a minister, she's a homemaker, respected in the community, upper middle class. They just looked better on paper than my young single college student, part-time job, living in public housing mom, single mom of 3 at the time. So I think then all efforts were pushed in the direction of adoption. Now, even though my last foster placement was when I was 3 years old, my adoption was not finalized until I was 12. And there's a reason for that. You'll have to find that out in the book. There's a reason for that, why I was final placement 3 years old. I don't know when they decided they wanted to adopt exactly, but I do know my adoption wasn't finalized until I was 12. Even though my bio mother lost her parental rights way before then. I believe she lost parental rights probably when I was like, I want to say 6 or 7. And the only reason why I say that is because that is when all visits stop. So from 3 up till maybe 6, we had weekend visits, and then weekend visits stopped and went to supervised visits. And then when supervised visits stopped, I believe that happened because she had lost her parental rights. So there needs to be reform. Social workers should not have too many cases to check in on. Everybody needs to be honest about what it means to be trauma-informed and child-centered. And kids need support while they're grieving. While they're grieving the trauma of losing their original family. Because for years I thought that I really just wanted and was so desperate for a family, when the truth is I just really wanted and was so desperate for my family. I lived for those weekend visits. I lived for them. They gave me life. They sustained me, knowing that I was going to be seeing them. And while on those visits, life felt normal. Like, yeah, this is my real life, But then when we went over to supervised visits, that was depressing, but at least I got to see them for a little bit. It was only for a few hours on a Saturday. And that was, saddening every time it was over. But for me, it was better than nothing. It was better than nothing. But then when that stopped, I was really depressed and I was really shut down about it. And it just never came back. So from where I'm sitting as a person with lived experience, the system is broken. It is absolutely broken. And I know someone who thinks, the system isn't broken. It does exactly what it's designed to do, which is rip families apart. But I feel like we'll get into that on another live. If that's, I'm always kind of on the fence about, does the system need to be reformed, or does the system need to be completely dismantled and rebuilt so it actually serves the people that it is supposed to serve? That's what I want to know. Hi, Carla. How are you? Thanks for coming in. Yeah, I'm just talking about this foster care and adoption and my experiences. I wrote a book about it. Yeah, I wrote a book about it because no kid should go through what I went through, period. No kid should live through what I lived through, period. And it is taking me this long. Thank you. It's taking me this long to be strong enough to write about it, to write about what was actually happening, what was actually going on in the household where I grew up. It was 6 children in the household. 3 were adopted, 3 were foster. And the views and attitudes that I grew up with were horrific, to say the least. To say the least. And when someone is maintaining a front, they have an image to uphold in the community, people, I don't know, people see what they want to see. I heard things like, oh, you're doing God's work, taking these poor orphan children that nobody want, and we were paraded around for that reaction, for that feedback from people out in the community. They were older people and people really looked up to them like, wow, you're doing an amazing thing. But that's just an assumption. That's just an assumption that people can make without talking to the children, without asking the children, what is going on at home? Are you happy there? Are you eating well? Are you being well taken care of? And if people ask, I'm pretty sure, well, I don't know. Honestly, if community members had asked me what was going on in the household, I probably wouldn't have trusted them to even do anything about it or even believe me. So yeah, I don't know. And I think that's an issue when you have children that are perceived to be unwanted and unloved and have no family. You can leave them as prey for all sorts of horrible things to happen to them, which happened to me and all of the kids in the household that I grew up with. And for so long, I kept the secrets, held on to them, as painful as it was, just because that was what was grilled into me. It was just grilled into my head. Nobody cares, nobody cares, nobody cares, to the point that I believed it. I believed, there was no need talking about it because nobody cares. Any time I try to express anything other than happiness, there was hell to pay. There was hell to pay, period. So I learned how to mask early on that if anybody asked me, how are you doing? How are things at home? That I was supposed to smile and say, everything is fine, everything is fine, everything is fine. I learned that early on because if you said anything else, there would be hell to pay, period. And, the fear was really, really installed in me. One, nobody cares. And two, if I should be so lucky to find one person that did care to look into it, to investigate further, I could go to a place much worse where I would be like, right, as so many other foster kids had, or I would be, I don't know, nothing would change and I would just be in trouble. And trouble meant extreme corporal punishment as well as other things. So, which I wrote about in the book. So yeah, I think a big problem with the foster care system is the way screening is done or not done, honestly. The way screening is done or way screening is not done. But I know for my adoptive parents, which were my foster parents first, I know they had to show proof of income to show that the stipend coming for the children would not be used to pay their bills and take care of them. And they had to show that they had enough space to house so many children. And then they had to be willing to take a first aid and CPR class. I believe it was like once every 5 to 10 years. Don't quote me on that. And I know a lot of their documentation for proof of income was fake. I also know that the CPR class was not taken seriously, because I used to ask questions like, so if there's a fire and, my clothes catch on fire, what are you going to do? And they would be annoyed. Like, I know how to dial 911. Like, don't badger me. I know how to dial 911. So they were going through the motions, but not even taking it seriously. And I remember having a strong reaction to that. Like, if something happens to me, you don't even know what to do. Oh, I know how to dial 911 was always the response. So it's like 3 of the requirements that they needed to meet to even maintain a foster care license, they only really met 1, which was, do you have enough space to house these kids? And there's a big difference between parenting and just warehousing kids. So just because you have a 4-bedroom home and you can put, bunk beds in each room and maybe each room can have 4 kids, doesn't mean you should have that many kids. But unfortunately, especially like in my situation and so many folks that I knew during that time, they were in it just for the money. And I literally overheard conversations where they said, we have, how many checks do you have? Because they were referring to children as checks. How many checks do you have? We have 5 checks. Oh, you have 4? Oh, okay. Oh, you're about to get 2 more? Oh, cool. Basically that was the attitude. Like, good for you. Yeah. Because the attitude also was, at my age, no one's going to hire me. I can't get a job. And it's easy to just warehouse kids. And that's not a good reason to become a foster parent. Just like because of infertility, that's not a good reason to adopt either. Because your experience of parenting is not going to be the same as if you gave birth to your own baby. Because if you gave birth to your own baby and you parented that way, your own child is not going to be dealing with maternal separation trauma at all. Whereas anyone in the system will be dealing with maternal separation trauma and need to be comforted and need to be reassured and dealing with rejection issues and abandonment issues. Why isn't she here? Why did she leave me? That type of stuff. But if you are not prepared for that and you're going into it thinking you're going to have the same experience that you would have had if you delivered your own child who is not suffering from maternal separation trauma, you're going to get a rude awakening. You're going to be like shocked into reality. And a lot of adopted parents, when they get shocked into that reality, are angry, full of rage, sad, depressed, like going through all these emotions, so much so they can't even deal with the kid that they said they wanted so badly, and now the kid is dealing with neglect again, either emotionally or physical abuse or worse, so it's a huge disservice to anyone going into foster care or adoption to not fully know what you're getting into. You're going to be dealing with maternal separation trauma. It shows up in all these different ways. Hey, Esther, thanks for being here. I love you. Yeah, it's going to be showing up in all these different ways. And these are the ways to address it. And these are the ways not to address it. So definitely the ways not to address it is by thinking you're going to beat the kid into shape, beat them into being what you want them to be, because that never works. That just creates more distance. Completely ignoring them and cutting off all emotional attachment is definitely not the way to do it. Because emotional abandonment is just adding trauma on top of trauma. And then in worst cases, foster parents will rehome. Not foster parents, adoptive parents can rehome. And right here on this app, there are pages for rehoming, which is completely disgusting if you ask me. It's like you can't sell a dog on Facebook, but you can rehome a child. You can say, for a fee, I'll sign whatever paperwork that says you're now responsible for this child because I'm not having the parenting experience that I wanted to have, period. And that's disgusting. That is disgusting. So I know for a fact that if my parents knew about the possibility of rehoming, I know my brother would have been rehomed. Because if you look at the two different ways we responded to maternal separation trauma, it was kind of like night and day. So me, because I was so desperate and hungry for acceptance and love and accepting any little bit of crumbs or shreds of evidence that I was cared for, I I shoved all my feelings in. I learned early on, don't talk about your bio mom, don't ask about her, don't ask about your bio siblings, don't ask about your grandmother, because nobody cares. And besides, we're doing all the work. That was what was told to me. If I even looked sad, like, what's wrong with you? And if I said, oh, I just miss my mom, I'm just sad because I miss my mom. Like, what? Why are you missing that whore? I heard that over and over. Why are you missing that whore when I'm doing all the work? I'm the one feeding you and clothing you, and I'm doing everything. I'm the one that you should be missing and wanting to be around. So I learned early on that missing her was unacceptable. I learned early on that missing her was not okay. Missing my brother and sister was not okay. So if I ever looked sad or uncomfortable or upset, no, it is not broken. Thanks for asking. I knew real quickly to throw that mask back on, because if asked, what's wrong with you, I was supposed to say, I'm fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. I learned that pretty early on. And that's what you call masking. That's what you call masking, which creates cognitive dissonance, meaning your affect, what you're showing on your face, doesn't match how you really feel. And that can be very hard and confusing for anybody, really. If you have to deny how you really feel and just say, oh, everything is fine, everything is fine. Like, that's just for the sake of someone else who is supposed to be taking care of you and providing a safe space, supposed to be child-centered, but they weren't child-centered. They were very me centered. And yeah, that's what I wrote about in the book, because I turned 50 this year, and I'm just now strong enough to speak my truth. I'm just now strong enough to stop keeping the secret that many people know about and knew about. And that's heartbreaking for me, that so many people knew what I was going through because they had gone through similar things with them, with my parents, but nobody ever said anything. And I guess, I understand maybe nobody said anything for them when it was them. It's still heartbreaking. It's still heartbreaking. So whoever is in the room, please do share this out. It would be nice to actually have a conversation with folks on this live, but for now, I'll just keep chatting it up and speaking my truth, because that is empowering me and giving me strength to hopefully make a difference in the lives of children in the future, as well as make a difference in the lives of people that want to become foster parents, people that want to become adoptive parents. Like, adoption, the way it's set up currently, is unethical. And people don't even realize that. People think, oh, adopt because then the kid will have a forever home and a forever family and be loved and cared for. One, adoption is not permanent. It's if the parents decide this is not what I signed up for, this is not what I told I was getting into, and they want out, then they just go to some rehoming events to try to push the kid onto someone else. And depending on what state and county you are in, the kid can wound up back as a foster kid because of a failed adoption. I've met people on other platforms where I go live that say, oh yeah, I was adopted twice. And I'm like, what? Like, I thought it was a one-time deal. That's it. That's all. Like, I know for me, I was in a closed adoption and I'll never be able to get out of it. And that's the problem, that we are basically getting these kids into these forever contracts that they can never, ever get out of. Ever. And the only way to break that connection is if the parents want to. And another problem with it, the way it is currently set up, it gives a new birth certificate, a falsified document that has the adoptive parents on there as the birth parents. They have the option to change the kid's name, and then it completely disconnects them from their bio family as well as medical history. So I had no idea what ran in my family, what medical issues were a part of my lineage, because all of that was severed. And all of that so they could have the fantasy that they had me like their natural child. All of that so they can have Hallmark syndrome and really live in Hallmark syndrome. So, it's really, really challenging when you are in foster care and adopted. Now, I know people are like, oh, you should be so happy. Like, no, I shouldn't be so happy that I lost my original family, that I lost all connection with my birth mother for somebody else's fantasy, who then in turn didn't even treat me right and give me the bare minimums. No, I should not be happy. I should not be grateful. I'm done keeping the secrets. And I'm very happy and very proud that I'm now strong enough to talk about it. And however people feel about my truth, hey, I ain't got nothing to do with that. You work on that between you and your therapist or whoever you need to work that out with. But I don't know what to tell you. Like I said, I turned 50 years old this year, and I knew I had to tell my story because over time, I have been in and out of therapy, all types of therapy, like talk therapy, drama therapy, art therapy, somatic therapy, EMDR. I mean, just narrative therapy, like as many modalities as you can think of. I probably have tried it, and they all helped in their own way. They all helped me with self-worth and self-love, and how to recognize when someone is just using me. They all helped. But I really know in my heart it wasn't until finding other adoptees, other former foster youth, that my healing kind of like really kicked up a notch. That I really began to feel strong enough to start having these conversations. So many years ago, I met someone who is a CAD. Now, CAD means Korean adoptee. So she was adopted from Korea, doesn't know who her bio mom is or anything. But I met her, and it's like, oh my God, you're adopted? I was adopted too. And oh man, we talked and we talked and we talked about the differences in like domestic adoption versus international adoption, and all the different problems that each adoptee faces, as well as the similarities. So many similarities. But she told me about this monthly support group for adoptees of color, BIPOC adoptees. So I started going to this before the pandemic. So I think I probably had went maybe to uh, four or five group meetings, and it was really amazing just to sit there and listen to people talk about their adoption experience. Some from foster care, some at birth, straight from an orphanage, from another country. Some were from a private adoption agency within the United States, across state lines. But there was a lot of similarities there. But the one thing I really did notice is that most of the BIPOC adoptees were transracial adoptees. Now, transracial adoptee means I'm Black and my adoptive parents are something else, usually white. Most of these BIPOC adoptees were adopted by white people. And, even though there's a lot of similarities, I didn't relate to a whole added layer that they had to deal with as far as growing up in a white household and being the only POC, and the racism that they had to deal with from outside the home as well as inside the home. I didn't deal with that. But even with that, there were still a lot of similarities. So I actually had started a same race Black adoptee support group, which we were meeting monthly for a while during the pandemic on Zoom. But because of work, and it was hard for me to keep it going. But that was a really great group. That was a really great group. And it was really healing for me to talk to other same race Black adoptees, as well as former foster youth. But like I said, I wasn't able to keep it up. And in the middle of that, I found out that if you just go on any social media platform and type adoption or adoptee or foster care. There is a whole community of people to connect with. And listening to other adoptee stories, listening to other former foster youth stories really gave me the strength, because it helped me realize it's not that there's something wrong with me. I'm not broken. I'm not damaged. I'm not less than. I'm not someone that someone settles for, and I should be so grateful that someone even looks at me twice, right? Like that's just not true. And that's what I grew up with. I wasn't their first choice. And I did hear nobody wanted you, and the proof is in the pudding, because if they wanted you, they would have done what they needed to do to get you back. That's the messaging I grew up with, and we wanted you, so therefore I need to tolerate any and everything that they throw my way. Any and everything. I should, everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. When it wasn't, when it was painful, when it was destructive, when it wasn't fine. But that's the messaging I grew up with, that I should be grateful. And that is a common thing with adoptees and former foster youth because of Hallmark syndrome, I believe. I think that's what makes people get into this with a certain expectation and then find out it's not that at all. And then they're mad and they take those feelings out on the child instead of dealing with it in their own therapy, with their own therapist. That's where those feelings need to go, not onto the child, because it's not the child's fault. It's not the child's fault that they have a natural inkling to miss their birth family. Like, you cannot replace them. You can comfort. You can say, I'm sorry your mom's not here. I'm sorry your dad's not here. I'm sorry that they are unable to be with you right now. I know they love you and they miss you, and maybe they're working on it, but I'm sorry it's not working out yet. Things like that would actually be more helpful and more loving towards the child. Not saying things like, who cares about that whore? She didn't want you, otherwise she would have did all the things to get you back. And clearly she's not, because where you at? You still here, right? You still in my face, right? That's not cool. Because every time you put down the bio family, you're putting down part of the child. So now the child has to feel like less than and low self-esteem and like damaged goods and undeserving and unworthy and all that. That's what I grew up hearing over and over and over and over. That made me feel less than and undeserving and just not good. Not good at all. And here I am at age 50. My adoptive parents have passed. I'm still healing and I'm still recovering from all of the traumas. Multiple traumas just layered on top of each other, just back to back layered. All because they were not trauma informed and really shouldn't have been parenting anybody, not even a dog. That's the truth. That is the truth. And it has taken me a lot to come on this platform specifically to speak my truth, because there are family members from my adopted family that are connected to me on here that probably held them in high regard without even knowing what's going on. Just as much is true that there are family members from that family that are survivors that have went through similar things that I went through. And then I wonder, maybe they don't remember, or maybe they've disconnected from it, or maybe they've tucked it away into a small little corner of their heart to never be looked at again, and I'm bringing it back up for them. I don't know. I don't know. But hey, maybe I'm going to find out. Maybe this is a good way to get some dialogue going. I would be appreciative of that, because just living in the silence is very hard. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of time and energy and just emotional labor to deal. And now that I think about it, like, no wonder I was exhausted all the time and couldn't think clearly and just running around, just barely making ends meet, and, all the while keeping up a good front, because that's what I was taught. It doesn't matter what's really happening. What matters is what people think is happening and how well you are presenting to the outside world. So to the outside world, Marika was a little quiet, a little shy, a little introverted, never spoke much, um, loved sweets, loved dogs. I mean, those are still true. But I'm really not as quiet, as introverted as people thought. That was just me having to keep that mask on and say, everything's fine, everything is fine, everything is fine, everything is fine. And finally, I'm able to say everything was not fine. Everything was not fine at all. At all. Everything was not fine. And I'm just now strong enough to speak my truth, regardless of who hears it and how they feel about it. It is off of my chest. It is out of my body, out of my system. For years I was told, tell your story, tell your story, tell your story. Tell your story, because telling your story will be healing and freeing for you, as well as healing and freeing for those who hear it. And, I heard that and I thought, that is a good reason to tell my story, but nobody really cares. Nobody really cares about all this at all, period. And I was also told, as long as you are keeping the secrets of your abuser, because you were manipulated into, family business stays in the family, don't air your dirty laundry type of mentality, allows abuse to happen in secret. And as long as I'm keeping that secret, I'm protecting my abuser. And guess what? They do not deserve my secrecy. They do not deserve my silence anymore. And I deserve to be free. I deserve to have the life of my wildest dreams, period. I deserve that, because I didn't ask for any of it, period. And I'm tearing up because it's true. Like, I was just a little kid who misses their mom, who missed their big brother and big sister. But I was never able to get that back. Even as an adult, attempting to reunite with them has been so hard. We try to connect and we don't understand each other. And then we have to take space. It's very hard. It's very confusing. And if those connections were maintained throughout my growing up, maybe it wouldn't be like this, but they weren't maintained because somebody had a fantasy of their family and everybody else didn't matter. So yeah, I deserve to live my wild and wonderful life. Period. I deserve it. And that is something I finally realized, that I deserve to be free of the secrets that I held on to ever since the age of 3. Yeah, I do. I deserve it. And whoever else has gone through it, y'all deserve it too. Whoever else is still going through it, you deserve it too. You deserve to live your wild and wonderful life, period. And that's why I'm speaking up. Three reasons: inspiration, education, and prevention. I hope to inspire those with lived experience to tell their story, because all of our stories are valid and all of our stories need to be heard. So people know the truth, good, bad, and indifferent. They need to know the truth and not just think, oh, adoption is such a wonderful, beautiful thing. For a lot of people, it is not. For some people, maybe it works out. You know, maybe they actually get parents that want to be there for them and want to be supportive of them and want to help them through whatever emotions they have around being in care. But it shouldn't be such a gamble. It shouldn't be such a gamble, with the higher likelihood being on getting parents that are in it just for the money or their own selfish needs and desires. It shouldn't be such a crapshoot. Like, seriously. Like, my story is not weird and unusual and unheard of. There's too many people with similar experiences. And that fact alone tells me there's something wrong with the system, that it keeps attracting narcissists, it keeps attracting pedos, it keeps attracting people that are in it just for the money, people that just feel like, you know, I can't get a job anywhere else, so I can just warehouse kids. It's not cool. It's not cool, period. And that's why I'm speaking out. That's why I'm telling my story, because I hope to inspire others to tell their story. I hope to educate people who have no clue about what's really going on, that are infected with Hallmark syndrome and just automatically see someone who's a foster parent and think, oh my God, you're doing amazing. You don't know if they're doing amazing. You don't know that. You don't know why they're a foster parent. You don't know how they're treating those kids. But to automatically be like, oh wow, you're doing the Lord's work and you're doing a great job. You do not know that. And then to prevent people in the future from being harmed, people that want to become foster parents should be told the truth about what it means to be trauma-informed and child-centered. People that want to adopt need to be told the truth about what it means to be trauma-informed and child-centered. They need to be told the truth about how adoption is a legal process that the child will never be able to get out of, and that there are actually other options that are just as good, like permanent legal guardianship, just guardianship that has an expiration date maybe of 18 or 25, or even conservatorship. But a lot of times adopted parents that I've spoke to said they were told adopt or we'll move the child to someone else who will adopt, because we need a plan of permanency. But that's not the only way to find permanency, through adoption. So they need to be told the truth. So those are the 3 reasons. That's a long answer, but the short answer is inspiration, education, and prevention. Inspiration, education, prevention, period. No kid should go through what I went through, as well as my siblings in that household went through. No kid should go through that, and it shouldn't be common. If it all had only happened to me, if what happened to me was just some weird one-off, I'd be like, wow, that sucks to be me, but, you know, that happened. But I'm glad this is not the norm. But unfortunately, this happens too often, and that lets me know the system is broken. Broken meaning it's not serving children and families the way I think it should be serving children and families, and the way most people think that it actually does. So it's my goal to assemble a team of wildflowers to get together, to brainstorm, to have think tanks, to talk about what can we do to fix this? What can we do that, so social workers have caseloads that they can actually manage? What can we do to make sure everybody taking care of someone else's child is trauma-informed and child-centered? What can we do to increase state mandates so it's not so different state to state and county by county? These are the conversations I want to have with folks. Like I said, my story is just one of many. I urge you to please listen to people with lived experience. The memoirs are out there. If you just do an internet search for adoptee memoir, foster care memoir, they're out there. And after you read 1, 2, 3, 10, you start to see the common themes, and you're like, what is going on with the recruiting process that somehow the wrong people are attracted to this? How? But yeah, those are the conversations I want to have with folks. And this is actually my second time going live on Facebook. And I feel like if I'm consistent, people will catch on and hopefully start to join and have their questions, and we can have some for real dialogue around this. Some real dialogue around what is going on in the system that is, so many former foster youth and adoptees don't make it out. You know what I'm saying? They don't make it. The fact that I made it is kind of a miracle. The fact that I made it with some sort of mental capacity and emotional capacity is a miracle. The fact that you can hear me is a miracle. And I think that's what gives me resilience too, because, when I was born with paralyzed vocal cords, and I had airways that were too small. When my birth mother gave birth to me, I had to stay in the hospital. She went home with sign language books and being told, this is the only way you're going to be able to communicate with your third born. I was the third one. And my grandmother takes full credit for the fact that I have a voice right now. My vocal cords are partially paralyzed, which is why I sound the way that I do. But my grandmother prayed every single day, Jehovah, please give my granddaughter a voice. Please give my granddaughter a voice. And she said when she heard me having sound, she knew her prayers had been answered. So yeah, she was a Jehovah's Witness, and her prayers being answered for me to have a voice really strengthened her belief in her faith in her religion. So yeah, I always wonder, maybe my voice just got installed late. Maybe I needed the first 3 months of silence for observation, to really just look around and see what was going on around me. And maybe, I have a lot of maybes around it. Maybe my voice box was kind of jump started late for a reason. So I really had time to think about and ponder what I was going to use this voice for. And it turns out I'm using it to speak. I use it to speak out against injustices, and mass incarceration and housing and now child welfare. I guess that's what it's for. I guess so. I mean, that's definitely where my heart is, where my passion is. And it, like I said, it took me to get to 50 years old to be strong enough to talk about it, to recruit my wildflower team. If you really are interested in being a wildflower and talking about action plans, what we can do to improve the system so it really works for families being preserved and reunified, send me a message. I'd love to talk to you, because that's my goal, and it can happen within my lifetime. It really bugs me when I encounter people that are social justice warriors and they say, well, it may not happen within my lifetime, but to me, that attitude is already already admitting defeat. You're already saying like, I know I'm going to lose, but nah, no, 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 no. Change is possible, and change is possible now, within my lifetime, period. We cannot settle for, well, maybe it will happen 100 years after I'm gone. What? No. No, 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 no. Unacceptable to me. I did not go through everything I went through to not at least be able to use my story to help someone else. Yeah. I wish there were more people in the room that had questions and we were actually having a dialogue. But my goal is to try to do this on Sundays. Maybe once I post this video in my feed and everything, and people have a chance to watch it and respond, you know, maybe people will be like, oh no, not Sunday, I'd love to go live. I'd love it if you went live on this day at this time or something. That would be awesome to me. That would be fantastic. But we'll see. Only time will tell. So the book that I wrote, it will be published and distributed January 2026. I'm very happy to finally have it done. It's been a labor of love. It has not been easy. It has been very triggering along the way. Stuff that I thought that I had been, you know, gone through therapy about, and I'm over it or whatever. And turns out it was still very hurtful to relive and to really think about it again. So I actually started writing, I think, 2017. Like I said, over and over, I heard, tell your story, tell your story. It'll help somebody else. Stop protecting your abusers. And the first time I told my story, I was a part of a drama theater club called Congregation of Liberation, and we were working on a play called Black Don't Crack. And I had a little skit in there called Conversations with Mama. And I don't know how I thought people would receive it, but I don't even know if I really thought about how people would receive it. I just thought, actually, no, I really thought people wouldn't really care, but that was okay because it was just me working on healing me. So when we finally did the show and I did my little part, my little skit or whatever, I think we performed Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday midday, I think. And after, there was a part where you could ask the performers questions. And I didn't expect many questions, honestly, because remember, I grew up hearing nobody cares, nobody cares, nobody cares. And really believing that, like, on a deep level. Why talk about it when nobody cares? But after I did the performance and people came up to me and some people were in tears and saying, that was so powerful. You're so strong. You're so brave. I can relate. I really connected with your story. Like, it was overwhelming. Like, I was blown away. I was overwhelmed. And I was like, whew, here we go again. I was really like, this is the first time that belief is being challenged, that nobody cares, nobody cares. That's the first time this belief was being challenged. And I was like, wow. So people would care if they knew. That was like a light bulb moment, like a aha for me. So from that play, I started a blog, a weekly blog, where I was just like kind of randomly blogging memories from being in foster care and being adopted, just kind of randomly. But I was not consistent, and it was kind of random and all over the place, and it was unorganized. And I was like, you know what? I just need to write a book and get everything out there in the open, like once and for all. So I started trying to write, and between being triggered and kind of not really having a good sense of direction, I would take breaks, and then I would try again, and then I would take breaks, and then I would try again. And I was like, oh my God, I need to get this thing finished. And I'm a strong believer that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So my friend, who is a Korean adoptee, she told me about someone who could be my book coach or writing coach. So I connected with this woman, and we talked on the phone or even by video weekly about my story and where I wanted to start it and what parts I wanted to get into and how the story was going to flow and all of that. And she really helped get me going, where I was like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. And even with that, I still took breaks because it was not easy. So in the middle of working with her, she had an illness and needed to take a break. And honestly, I needed to take a break too. And then I reached out to her, and she was better, but then she was busy with other projects. So I tried to plug away at it on my own, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not getting anywhere, because I really wanted to work with someone who was a former foster youth or an adoptee, if not both. And then I met that person on another social media platform, and that person became my writing coach or book coach, or however you want to say, and really helped me get to the finish line with this book. And I am forever, eternally grateful for that. And like I said, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So this person is a transracial adoptee who was a foster kid first. And I told him, I said, the reason why it's taken this long is because I always end up getting triggered and needing to take breaks. And he was like, girl, you need to just let them tears flow and keep writing. You have to keep writing, even if you are crying, even if you are angry. That's going to just come through in the writing. Just keep going forward. And I was like, challenge accepted, bet. So I just kept plugging away, even through the hard parts, going live on another platform for writing support, and that helped for a while. And then doing lives like these and having people come in and ask questions and show interest in the book, again, to challenge that whole nobody cares. It really helped a lot. It really did. And now it is finished, and it's going to be published, and it's on pre-sale. The link is in my bio, and I'm happy. I'm excited. I feel lighter. I feel freer. I feel free, finally. Free from the shame and embarrassment, free from feeling like something is wrong with me. I'm damaged, like I attract these horrible type of situations and people. That's no longer true. It was never really true. It was just flawed belief system on my part, which was installed from my adoptive parents. It was installed in the way that I was treated. It was installed the way my revolving door of social workers ignored me, the way teachers ignored me, the way community members, family members that knew or probably had an idea because they went through it with these people too, ignored me. Said, well, she must be doing fine, Oh, well, look at me. I went through it and I'm fine. That's just assumption. I don't know if that's the attitude, because I have never talked to them before about it. I've never talked to any of them about it, and that's because of fear of not being believed, or fear of being believed in the person saying, I went through my own healing journey, so I don't want to hear about it. I don't know if that would have happened. I never had the courage to find out, but now I do. Now I do. And I just hope that my story accomplishes the goals that I have for it, inspiration, education, and prevention. That's what I'm hoping and praying for. Hoping and praying for. Hoping and praying for. That I actually make a difference. Like, they say, Lord, please don't let my living be in vain. And I don't think it will. I don't think it will. Already people have told me they've learned so much about the system just through coming to my live streams. I've been live streaming on another platform. This is my second time live streaming here, and I hope to make it a regular occurrence, maybe weekly on Sundays. I'm thinking weekly on Sundays. But if you are watching the replay of this, please do put in the chat if you are interested in joining this type of live stream, what day and time you would like to see it at. If I can get a good number of people, I'll look at it, maybe take a poll. Yeah, maybe I'll put up a poll about me going live talking about this. And it, please help me continue to dispel the belief that nobody cares. Please. That is a direct ask. That is a direct ask. People have to care. And someone made a joke like, oh, Lord, here she go, turning into Whitney Houston again. I believe the children are the future. That's what we say. Do we? Do we care about the future? Or are people really just like, within the few years I have left on this planet, that's all that matters to me and I don't care? I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. Only Sunday. Okay, thank you for saying that. I appreciate you. Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like I have said a lot. I feel like I have given a lot of information for people to respond to and reply to, and hopefully people will watch this video all the way through. I know in this day and age, people's attention span is super short, but I hope that something I said has landed on your heart and made you think and given you a reason to interact and have this dialogue with me. Marika Goolsby, a former foster youth and adoptee that is just now healed enough to have this conversation. Just now healed enough to have this conversation with folks. Just now healed enough to stop protecting my abusers and stop keeping the secrets. I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. I won't do it anymore. I refuse to do it. I have to speak my truth. Yeah. So let me see if there's a way I can find out how long I have been live. No. Yeah, I am new to live streaming here. And it's going to take me some practice to know all the things that I can and can't do as far as little bells and whistles. Each platform has a different way of doing it. So like I said, this is my second attempt live streaming. The first one was literally like a 10-minute thing that I didn't even post because I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? But yeah, I am Marika Goolsby, Orphan Girl, on all social media platforms. And if you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, please do message me or just put a comment. Comments are better, actually. And let's get this conversation going. Let's get the dialogue going. So yeah, I think that's it for now. I mean, I guess I feel like that's enough. I feel like that's definitely enough. And we're going to do this again next Sunday. Hopefully more people will join. And hopefully between now and next Sunday, I'll make a few posts about it. So people will be kind of ready with their questions, with their comments, with their concerns. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. Screw it. Let's do it. That's something I learned while working with disabled adults. There's actually a funny story connected to that, which maybe I'll get into later on another live. On another live. Okay. I think I want to end this live like I end all of my live streams with the song that I started out with, which is basically my theme song. I used to have weekend visits, then those ended, and then I had supervised visits, and at the end of the supervised visits, me, my mom, my older brother, and my older sister would sing this song, and I'm sharing it with y'all as my exit song. Okay. Commercials. Nobody likes them. Very few people like them, I'll say. This is a song. Jam it out. Jam it out. Thank you. Jam it out. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. This is proof. I was born in the 70s. Just let me speak for the record. We're giving love in a family dog. We are family. I got all my sisters and we are family. Thanks for jamming it out with me. Just begun to get our share of this world's delight. High hopes we had for the future and our goals inside. We know we don't get depressed. Here's what we call our golden rule. Have faith in you and the things you do. You won't go wrong. Oh no, this is our family jewel. We are family. Oh, okay. It said my live was going to be blocked because of unauthorized music. So at least now I know if I attempt to play the exit song, it needs to be like that fast. But anyway, for those of you who heard it, I'm glad you did. That was always our end of supervised visit song. And, you know, when I'm trying to reconnect with my bio family, even if there's misunderstandings and hurt feelings and upset, we can always just sing that song and be like, let's just table that. So anyways, thank you so much for being here, and leave your comments in the comments section, questions, comments, concerns. I am looking forward to having this dialogue. I'm looking forward to talking about it. Let's see. And yeah, until next Sunday, good night.